Welcome, everyone, to this new conversation we are going to have today with Chaim Noll, directly from the Negev desert in Israel. First of all, I really want to thank you for accepting the invitation to this conversation, Chaim. Thank you very much. It's also very nice to see you doing well. I'm really happy. And my first question to you would be, how are you doing under the circumstances?
We do quite well, um, except that three of our grandchildren are currently serving in the army. The one a girl who has her regular service, and two boys who were called up to the as reservists. So that three young people of our family are now in, let's say, permanent danger of life. So I think where I can say it like that. And of course, we think of them all the time and try to stay in touch with them via WhatsApp as far as they are accessible. They are very optimistic and very positive. They give us all the time positive answers. They are well. They are in high spirits and motivated and whatsoever. But nevertheless, we grandparents are and the parents are indeed deeply concerned about what may happen.
Well, it's absolutely understandable, and hopefully everything is going to be fine. But on the other hand, I don't know how much you get there from the news coming from Europe or the United States, and the absurd climate that is now taking, I don't know, control over the European or the Western, the American mind. I mean, the events that are unraveling in U.S. campuses are absolutely new in the history of the United States. Yes, I mean, sporadic events of anti-Semitism in campuses in society have happened, but never to such an extent, especially in a moment after Israel has been so brutally, so atrociously attacked, where, I mean, it's like words have no meaning anymore in the Western arena, where everybody blamed the victim for trying to free his own people. For, I don't know, can you make sense of all of this? Because honestly, I'm at loss of words in front of what's going on right now.
I don't know exactly the situation in the United States. Maybe it's different from Europe, but in Europe it's quite easy that the new anti-Semitism came up with the increase of the numbers of immigrants from Arab countries during the last decade. I have written about this, I don't know how many times, and published and warned against it. Germany started a campaign against the right. They pretended to think that the anti-Semitism came from the right, and there, of course, there is anti-Semitism from the extreme right. But that's not the problem at the moment in Europe. The problem at the moment in Europe is the Islamic anti-Semitism. And this entire topic was neglected, if not denied, over the last decade. If you tried to talk about it or to write about it, you got the label of a racist or an Islamophobe or something like that. When you warned against the new rise of anti-Semitism from the Islamic side, although there were indications more than enough all the time over the years. They rule entire quarters in Europe, entire towns, if you want. They rule the high schools. The atmosphere for instance, in schools in Berlin is very dangerous. Jews cannot send their children anymore to a normal German school because there is mostly, if not a Muslim majority in certain parts of Germany, at least a strong minority. And that's a problem that people in the West think that minorities are weak and have to be protected. But that is kind of minority that is aggressive and dangerous. And this minority rules the place. That's the problem in Europe. There is, from the statistics, still less than 10% of the German populace Muslim, maybe 8%. But that's enough to rule the atmosphere and to influence and to poison the atmosphere in the direction of anti-Semitism. I will show you, I have just published a book that was published in Germany now. It's called Sharia and Smartphone. I mean, that's understandable also in English. I write about the modern Islam. It's the work of 20 years in several essays I wrote over the years, partly scientific, about how Jew hatred in Islam is rooted in the religious basic literature, and from these rather scientific texts to the to more let's say daily affairs. But so this book is now in Germany very important. I didn't think about it when I gave it to the publisher. The publisher asked me what I would like to publish next, and I said we should try this collection of my essays about Islam and its relation to Jews and Christians. It's not only the aggression is not only directed against Jews, it's directed against Christians as well, and they consider every Westerner a Christian. So it is directed against the West altogether. And this is what the people in the West didn't like to understand over the last decade, and now they are surprised about it. I'm not surprised about what happens now. It's just what was indicated over the years again and again.
But you see, here is one of the points where I'm really surprised, because to me, to you, to many people that, I mean, have a modest understanding of the situation, this is all so clear. But there is a large part of the population which, for whatever reasons, they take, in any case, no matter what, the side of the anti-Semite, the side that is always against Israel. I cannot really rationally, I see this as a failure of our educational system, of our media, and first and foremost of our political class. Don't you see?
Of course, it's like that. But in general, I think that they don't mean Israel as such. They mean the West altogether. And Israel became a symbol of the West insofar that Israel is the Western country that, with the utmost energy, defends itself against the Muslim aggression. The other countries don't. Other
Yes.
countries are not in our situation that their existence depends on how they defend themselves against the Muslim aggression. So they underestimate it all the time. They think it's not such a problem. For us, it's a problem. And that's why we had to develop ways how to defend ourselves against this Muslim aggression. So it's our neighboring countries and the militias paid from Iran against Israel, and so on. We have this year, as we have seen, very close. I also live only 40 kilometers. What is it, 25 miles or 30 miles from the Gaza border. So it's not that far. And of course, we became a little nervous when we realized that there was such a failure in our defense system that allowed to let these people in and commit the atrocities that are known all over the world now. And there was a short moment of shock, and people said that they were shocked about it, but that didn't change the general constellation that the youth in Western countries is very easily to inflame in movements against their own society.
Yes.
So the anti-capitalist impulse is very vivid and is easily to inflame. So the Israel question means the West altogether. Next is the United States and the other governments, and it's interesting that the governments have a tendency at the moment to solidarize, to be in solidarity with Israel, whereas a minority of their populace, a very vocal and loud minority, does not. So that's a problem at the moment. I mean, it's still a minority, and it should be easy for the Western societies to deal with that, but it shows a lot of problems within the Western societies, their incapacity to defend themselves. But I mean, we have given here a bad example on October 7th with what happened here, that also here was such a neglect that the Gaza border was to penetrate, that it was possible to penetrate the Gaza border. And I see it symbolic also that also Israel lost its let's say energy during the last years to look into that, or maybe they made wrong decisions. I mean, this happens, things like that happen. But the general problem in my eyes is that the Western societies don't realize the danger of the Muslim aggressive potential, and that they mean it really as they say, and that they are not to underestimate that they can become very dangerous and aggressive and can influence the atmosphere of entire countries, as we now see in Europe. I think that is also what happened on the campuses in the United States. The anti-Semitic impulse, of course, came also in the United States from Islamic groups. And they were accepted as a voice of minorities and oppressed minorities. And it was very easy to feel solidarity with the poor people in Gaza. Of course, they are poor. They are very oppressed, but not from Israel, because Israel has withdrawn from Gaza. It's absurd that Israel is still considered the occupation power, although the real occupation power is the Hamas. The Hamas has hijacked the place the entire Gaza Strip and establish the rule of a totalitarian violence against the populace over there. I think they have the highest suicidal rate in the world. In the meantime, people kill themselves out of despair. There is a lot of material about it from people who could leave the Gaza Strip about the living conditions over there that has nothing to do with Israel anymore. But it was neglected from the West. It was not looked into that. This Hamas was allowed to grow into that monster that it is today. And now we all together have the problem because it's a worldwide network, not only in the Gaza Strip. Hamas has its cells all over the world, probably also in the United States, of course in Europe, in all European countries. So the federal government in Germany now came to the point, after many years, we had suggested to do that. I think we wrote about it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that the Hamas has to be declared a criminal organization and that there have to be a prohibition of their activities. Nothing happened. Only now it happened. Now they did it, but they did it in a very bad way, so that it is not really realized, only declared. So the West is very hesitant to do anything and come up really with measures against the aggressive Islamic minorities they have in their countries.
Well, but on the other hand, the West as such is misinformed, is constantly misinformed from media. It is misinformed inside universities. I mean, you have to 300 all the Harvard University student associations, they've signed a letter condemning Israel the day after October 7th. And this has produced a reaction inside the faculties where 350 professors in Harvard have signed a letter against the presidency of the university for not condemning this act. Now, when they received a backslash, some of the students' organizations, including some Harvard Law, they said, oh, we haven't read the letter, we just signed it. And you want to become a lawyer. And what you're saying also about the aggression toward the West, it's also confirmed by words that, again, are not reported as they should from President Erdogan, who recently, a few days ago, said, do you want, and he specifically said, a war between the crescent moon and the cross. He just said that. The same man that takes Europe hostage since a long time, that has decided, the story about the entrance of Sweden in NATO, where he was the one who decided. It's a situation where you have on one side people who understand the situation because they look for information. But if you just look at the mainstream information, at the mainstream politics, you are absolutely misinformed. Recently, actually, that's a case related to Germany, which I've read on Akut. This Tagesschau gave a report about the Israeli-Arab conflict that was something like taken from full with the inaccuracies. And the people, when you talk in terms of Israel as oppressor, even if that's, the Jew has always been in history the boogeyman. That's clear, It was a dayside, was eating the blood, matzot, all the crazy stuff that have been said. Now, there is the I think and how is it possible that we have become, I posted just yesterday a conversation between Ben Shapiro and a student at Oxford. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. There are some disturbances, but it's not 100%. But I hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, great. And you know, I posted the conversation between Ben Shapiro and the Oxford student. She didn't even know that England bombed Germany during the Second World War. This, the way, you know, I really always tend to stress this. We have an educational problem which reflects on all sides of society, because it's clear our politicians come from the system. In Italy, and then I ask you, there's been a guy, a teacher in a private university. I don't want to call such a person professor, named Orsini, big character in the culture industry, which on the 7th he was blaming Israel. I have his tweets, and this has been normalized. But in Europe, you're right. Europe has always had some problems on this side. But this is now happening in America. The Vice President Kamala, I don't know, 2 days ago, came out with a declaration worrying about Islamophobia in the US. Right now, she's worried about Islamophobia. Is this a dystopia, or is this what?
Yeah, the problem is that the Islamic groups succeeded in denouncing every criticism of their religion and religious basic literature and their ideas as Islamophobe. So you are not allowed anymore to criticize whatever there is written in their books, for instance, against the Jews or the Christians that have to be killed. Many times it's called in the Quran to kill the Jews and to kill the Christians and to kill all non-believers. When you mentioned this, although it's written in their literature, you were already declared Islamophobe. Of course, that was that was absurd and did a lot of harm to the West. That the usual critical approach to everything that we claim as a part of Western culture, that we are allowed to criticize, to use critical thinking about everything and to talk about it. That was, in this case, not allowed anymore. And these groups succeeded in creating an atmosphere to denounce everything that was critical about their religion and their way of life and their other activities as Islamophobe. So that's why this atmosphere this atmosphere came up in the Western countries. I don't know what the situation in the United States is. I'm a little bit confused, because the Muslim populace is very, very low in the United States. I don't know. It's a very small minority compared to the European states.
Depends where you're talking about.
Right.
I mean, because there are some states, especially New York, Michigan, California, partially. I mean, if you go to Jersey City, which is, the neighbor city to New York, there are areas that I was once driving in Jersey City, and honestly, I swear, I thought I was in Pakistan, because it was everything, the entire street.
Yeah, as it is in London and Paris and all over the world. So that means that parts of the United States are in the same situation as the European metropolis is, that most of the big cities in Europe, be it in Belgium, in Sweden, in Germany, France, Britain, in almost every country, is there are Muslim strongholds that are used as let's say fortresses, or as in a strategic way to undermine the rest of the society. I think the general problem is that the people in the West don't want to understand the real character of the religion and the mindset of many Muslims in the world, that considers aggression against the West as a matter of course. They don't. That's a normal thing. That's that's what is written in their religious basic literature, and as long as they go to the Quran schools and learn all that, and people in the West have never cared about it, what they learned there. And I know that, for instance, in Berlin or other German towns, it was a matter of course that young Muslim people came under the influence of very aggressive imams who could spread their anti-Western ideology, and it's a very fierce and I must say, as we have seen, brutal, gruesome kind of dealing with other people, with the non-believers and the Jews and the Christians. All this is justified in their religious literature. The Hamas, in its charter, can justify every of its political demands that it has to fight the state of Israel and to eradicate the state of Israel from the map and what their ideas are. They can justify this with Quran verses. So they have Quranic material to justify this. So as long as people are under the influence of this religion, I don't see the real possibility of that the situation can get better. So that's a problem. It's a problem that stems from their very religious, from their very basic literature, and we cannot change that. We have to live with the fact that Muslims have a complete different approach to what we call our values and so on. They don't accept that, generally not, because it's not what is written in their basic literature. There is written that violence is a positive attitude, to kill the non-believers, that all kinds of breaking the law and so on are allowed. So we suppose that people follow our values and that they try to, for instance, not to kill civilians in a war. But now we see that the Hamas does the opposite thing. They told their fighters they had to kill civilians. So we have to live with the fact that they are completely different in their approach to these things. And this is what the West didn't want to understand. They consider them, in the moment they live in their countries, people like us. And I mean, yes, that's what the Bible says, that we all are children of God. But here is a real difference in the attitude towards the general values of life and death and everything, and peace and war and whatever you like. I have written so much about it that I'm not astonished to see that we have to live with that danger in our daily life. But I'm one of the few people in the West who are ready to accept that. Most people think that we make mistakes, that we don't treat them well enough, that we don't solve their problems or whatever. But the reality is that they don't want to have their problems solved in the way we think we should solve them. They live in that system of, in our eyes, injustice, with their clan structures. There is not equality that everybody has a chance or something. That's a society split into tribes and clans, and everything is based on this structure that's completely different from the Western approach, where we say everybody is treated the same way, everybody can go to college and so on. No, this is a society of hierarchic society, and they accept that, and they consider this the way the Prophet and Allah has arranged the world, and they live with that, and they live in their clan structures until today. That's a problem, by, for instance, in Europe, that the police and the law enforcement and so on does not. They cannot deal with these clan structures that people live in German towns. They arrange their they take a quarter of a town for a certain tribe and another tribe in the neighboring quarter, and so there is a war between these tribes, as it has been in the desert over the centuries, as a matter of course in daily life. And now it's in European cities, and the police does not know how to deal with that. They are not capable to bring the law enforcement that is necessary in Western societies to the point that they do with every other with all other groups. You hear the jet. You hear the jets on the sky. I have a lot of noise here because all the time the fighter jets are flying here above our heads to Gaza. We are next to an airport, a military airport, and it's going day and night. So that's why maybe. I'm not understandable when it gets loud. So that's the situation, that the West has no strategies yet. So when you say Kamala Harris considered Islamophobia an urgent problem of the American society, as it is in Germany the same. All the years there was a big propaganda machine working against Islamophobia. So now they start to understand what they have done, that they have irritated people, that they have confused people with that. Nobody was allowed to say the truth about the real situation of Islam and the real approach of Islam to the general questions of life. So when you wanted to talk about that, and when you wanted to say there is a general difference to how we see the world, you were already considered Islamophobe or something. So that's why you could get tired with that. So I'm happy that I have published that book. It was before October 7th, of course. And I didn't know what would happen, that it would happen that way. I mean, we live here in Israel in expectance of that war that we have now for several years already. We knew that they got the opportunity to pile up rockets and other weapons, especially in the north. The north is still more dangerous. The Hezbollah in Lebanon, in the south, the Hamas in Gaza is since several years, let's say, dried up were concerning the smuggling of weapons, because the Egypt also closed its border and closed the tunnels where the weapons could, under the rule of the Muslim brothers that they had before. You remember, they had a
Yes.
time of a government of Muslim brothers, that they could smuggle thousands of rockets into Gaza. But now they have only, let's say, 5,000 or so left. And that's a number you can overlook and you can calculate when it will be uh, all shot in the air. And I mean, it's very dangerous still, because the Israeli defense systems are not 100% waterproof, so to speak. So the Iron Dome has a rate of 90%. So when they send 1,000 rockets, that means that still 100 of them may reach its goal in Israel. So we live under the constant threat of rocket attacks. And now you hear
Yes.
you hear that goes day and night. I mean, it's a little bit cruel to think about what it causes in Gaza. So when every jet flying along here, I think about the people who have to suffer from that, and these people are not the ones we that are guilty for the situation, or not really. So it's a problem how to eliminate the Hamas. I mean, that is the idea of our politicians now, to eliminate the Hamas. I don't know whether it's possible, but that's a very cruel business for both sides. We have to fear about the lives of our grandchildren, but they also live in a constant situation of life-threatening. So it's war, and war is ugly whenever, and even if it is done most precisely. I mean, generally, Israeli army is known for its precision in its airstrikes and so on, but nevertheless, there are many innocent people have to suffer from that, and it's terrible that it came to that point. But there was no possibility to avoid that. Europe and the United States still have a good chance to avoid real violence. But if you let the people rule the campuses, these groups, and of course they find a lot of American young people who are confused enough and uneducated enough. You mentioned the case of a student who didn't know about British bombardments against Germany, or whatever it was, or that Britain was in war with Germany. So there is general decline in education at the universities. There is a visible decline in the level of education and so on. So there's a lot of pretension, I think, now. There is pretension of academic level that doesn't exist anymore. So it's in the humanities, at least. And this is a question of the humanities. I mean, people work still precise and reliable in the natural sciences, but the humanities are in a constant decline over the last decades. The humanities are in a really pitiable state. At American universities, not different from those in Europe. And this influences the mindset of people. All this was underestimated. I mean, the decline of academic studies in the Western countries, in the humanities. That means that people get more stupid and confused, and are not capable to deal with the new challenges that come up now, and we have to face.
there is an old saying that when the Lord wants to destroy a people, first makes them mad.
Yeah.
And there is a high level of madness also
Right.
in the fact that we have things in front of our eyes, because I can ask easily a question: how many Israeli have been involved in mass murder in French theaters, the Bataclan? How many Israelis have killed
Mm,
cartoonists, the case in also in Paris? How many, and so forth and so on. And every person can relate to these events, and they
mm,
always give explanations or pseudo explanation. Oh, those are extreme. They are fringe people, without looking at the reality on the other
mm,
side, without, as you
mm,
said, without a critical
mm,
discourse on the origin
mm,
of the Islam, taking
mm,
all the narratives that comes from one side
mm,
and
mm,
disregard completely what the other side, I mean, what reality in this case has to show you. This is
mm,
schizophrenia. But also, there is, if you allow me, I would say, partially, one side is the narcissistic mentality of the West. We
mm,
think everybody thinks like the West. So when we see people that are attacking civilians, we think, oh, if they are doing this, they must have been pushed to a level that they
yeah,
have no other choice, which
yeah.
is the Western mentality. But it's not the case. If you have to do with the genocidal mentality, I mean, what it means, that grotesque slogan that has been chanted from the U.S. to Europe, from the river to the sea. That means genocide. That's not resistance. That's not wanting peace. I mean, you were mentioning also before the rockets that were shot from Gaza. But I
Yeah,
mean, Gaza has been left from the Israeli army in
yeah,
an effort to reach peace. And what is the result? That you leave a piece of territory, and in response, you basically
yeah.
create a base for criminals to launch rockets at you. And this is in front of our eyes. You do not need an extensive knowledge on the Middle East to know these basic
Mm,
facts. And yet, the European point the finger: Israel. This is
mm,
schizophrenia. This is way more than just a cultural attitude. There is something deeply wrong in someone who can just see from one eye.
right.
And because, anti-Semitism always defies reason.
Yeah, it's right. But nevertheless, I think it's still a question of knowledge and education. People don't know about, for instance, what Hamas really wants and what is written in their charter. I was sent a very interesting video clip some days ago. It was in an American university campus that a boy went round and asked students to sign a paper
Yes.
uh, in solidarity with Gaza and with Hamas even, and they agreed. And then he told them what they really sign when they sign this paper. They sign the demands of the Hamas. And he told them, so that means that you are a homophobe and you are against women and you want that women are in a kind of slavery. The students were deeply shocked to hear this because they didn't know that all this is, of course, written in the Charter of the Hamas. Jew hatred is a matter of course. That's no special thing. So I see in Europe, at least in the moment, people get aware of what Hamas really means. The attitude starts to change, at least in certain circles. The situation has still worse in my eyes. I think that the October 7th also was an eye opener to a lot of people who know that this was it's a fashionable word now. The red line. The red line was is always quoted that something is the red line. But I see that this kind of aggression against Jews is something that most of the people have not known that it is a matter of course for militant Muslims. In the moment it turns out, and it, as the student told the young people who wanted to sign this paper at the American campus, at the moment they learn what this really means, the attitude changes. So that's why I think it's we have the duty to the obligation to inform and to educate the young people about the problem that comes up. I mean, here in Israel, we have to do that because they all know it from their practical. Most of them go to the army, and that means that they are confronted with certain Muslim aggression. So I saw it with my grandsons. I haven't to talk to them about militant Islam anymore. They know what it means. So they have been in battle with that. But in the Western countries, it's different. Or let's say it has been different until now. People in Europe are deeply shocked about the impertinence that shows in these mass demonstrations you have in European cities nowadays with open declared Jew hatred. So they did, I don't know what in Europe to overcome their own European anti-Semitism. It was the work of decades of education. They're very proud in it. And now these people come and throw it away. They go over the line that they have been drawn to say we will never again treat Jews that way like the Nazis did. But these people have always declared their deep sympathy with the Nazis, and that they understand the Nazis well, and that they share their Jew hatred. But nobody has really taken this seriously. Now, I think, let's say, this, I would say that people start to take it seriously, that they see that it's really meant what they say. And this is a difference to the days before October 7th, when people in the West suggested themselves that they have to take that seriously, that they ignored it. You cannot ignore it anymore. So now it's open, and the Jew hatred from Muslim groups in Europe and the United States is openly declared. And now these societies have to find ways to deal with that. They have to react. They have to react. I think that's the difference, that Western countries will start to react. I mean, it will take time, and there was a long time of negligence and denial. But now the problem is, I think it's recognized. It's you cannot overlook that anymore. So it's, of course, it's out, and the Western countries have to react. So that means also procedures of education and changing of mindsets in Western academia. It's interesting to see what will happen now. So whether really, I mean, what I have written all the years, and that earned me the reputation of an Islamophobe or racist or whatever, is now what the main media in Germany writes suddenly. And there is a change visible in my eyes. So I'm very really excited to see what this will lead to, what will happen during the next years.
I really appreciate your optimism, Chaim. I really appreciate it more pessimistic than you are on the situation. Also, because it looks like so many statements that were typical of the classical anti-Semitism now are just back in the open. And I mean, probably I evaluate also online, but on my channel, for example, since October 7th, when I published a video saying I stand with Israel, I saw the merging of so many comments of people who are not worried to make anti-Semitic statements just like that in the open,
Hmm.
without without nothing. For them, it's so it means that anti-Semitism was there already. It has been under the ashes for a long time, and now
Right.
when they saw this shameless people making parties basically in all major Western cities on October 7th and 8th. I mean, in London, in front of the Israeli embassy, and the police did nothing, though they felt like empowered by this show of force. And now they are coming out without any really, they, they have no problem making,
Hmm.
because they hide that behind anti-Zionism.
Hmm.
I also quoted a
Of course,
famous
yeah. But this may be the first thing that this cover of anti-Zionism that has long been used as a cover for anti-Judaism in European countries. This is blown up now by the demonstrations of Muslim groups in Europe that they mean the Jews. There is no doubt about it. So there are a lot of anti-Semites in Western societies. I agree with you. But there are also a lot of people who know that anti-Semitism is a kind of self-destruction for their own society. There are many examples in history, not only Germany, also or the Soviet Union, also other countries that permanent Jew hatred undermines the society, and this is experienced quite often. And the more intelligent people know about it, there will be a struggle. There will surely be a struggle within Western societies about the topos of anti-Semitism, because really, I agree with you that many people are anti-Semitic. Also in Germany, I feel that. But there is also a growing supporter scene. So you called me an optimist. As an Israeli, I have to be an optimist.
You have to
I
be.
mean, I couldn't live here without optimism. We wouldn't be here without that. So we, of course, believe that for those really life-threatening problems, there will be a solution, and that our Maker, who has guided and rescued us so many times before, will also give us the inspiration to find methods to deal with that. And I think that we can generalize this for other Western countries, that there will be a growing number of people who understand that Jew hatred is a symbol for a certain kind of self-destruction of their own society. Um, you
Yes,
called it
but sorry.
narcissism, but I would even call it masochism from the psychology. It's a kind of self-hatred. This can no Western society afford anymore. This is what they have to learn first.
Okay, sorry if I interrupt you, but shouldn't we have already known this after all the events of the last century? Shouldn't be this a mark of at least Western society, at least Germany, at least Europe, after what we have seen in the last century? The fact that these ideas still have, I mean, still circulate in the society, the fact that you can openly, as I mentioned, this Italian teacher at this
mm,
private university, this Mr. Orsini, he will still be there even after the statements. The gravity of this, this is a tragic moment in history, and it seems that most people are unable to grasp the tragedy of what is going on, because words are actions. And this is where I'm really pessimistic about the situation. I really hope that we will have a reaction, that we will have a, but to do that, we need history, we need culture, we need education, we need the universities, we need the schools as our ally in the way to enlightenment. And we are going toward a different way, because the teachers, in at Stanford, this associate professor, he
mm,
divided the Jews from the rest of the class, and
mm,
then he asked the people to leave their backpack there,
mm, mm.
as they were separated from their things. That's selection in Stanford.
Of course, it is, but I think that these cases are so becoming so aware that they become so much focused on now, that is, in my eyes, a sign of that a lot of people realize that this it can't go that way any longer. I agree with you that a lot of people be will be stupid enough to be Jew haters. I mean, we have this phenomenon throughout history. It has never changed. I don't believe in any solution of this problem. So you cannot live in a world without Jews. Cannot live in a world without Jew hatred. That has been so from the beginning on, from ancient times. I know the ancient literature well enough, and the Jew hatred that was already in ancient Egypt and in the Roman Empire and so on.
Yeah, of course.
Very vivid, also in the literature. The problem is that the so-called elite, so those circles in society, media people, for instance, or the academics in humanity and so on, they have to change their attitude, and this will help, I think. So the problem, these people have failed during the last 20 years, we can say so. So they have really failed in defending the West against real aggression from people who openly declared that they wanted to destroy the Western societies. And in the moment, they will realize that they're what they call tolerance, but I call it rather negligence towards these people, will destroy even them. So in the moment they understand that, and this is a problem now in Germany, for instance, that or the good point that I see that in the German society there's a kind of awakening, that they understand that what happens there on these demonstrations with openly declared Jew hatred and even calling to kill the Jews. It's not only Jew hatred, they really suggest killing the Jews. That this is an aggression that also is directed against themselves. And in that moment, I think there is some instinct in man to defend himself. So what they didn't all the years think was necessary, because they felt so secure. The problem is that the Western young people in the West feel absolutely secure. The society seems to. We had this shock here in Israel, that we had to understand. We also thought that our borders were secure, that everything was secure. The state was ready to deal with it. So there were some hours when the state failed also here and did not protect its citizens. And we see what happened then. So I think this was an eye opener to many people in the West. Also, it was a degree of cruelty and infamy um, and anti-human, general anti-human behavior that um, has helped many people in the West to understand that also they are in real danger if they allow these people to come up more and more.
I really hope that you're right. And I just wanted to add to your previous statement about Germany that in Berlin, I don't know if you're aware, the police has been tasked to remove the posters of the kidnapped people, the German police.
Hmm.
So, I mean, this awareness is
Yeah,
not that clear,
no,
but
that's a usual behavior we know from many years. I think it is already 10 years ago that that the police removed Israel flags from windows in German towns when there was a Muslim demonstration with a strange argument that this provoked their. So, in the moment they understand that there isn't anything to provoke anymore, it is already there, whether we show the flag or not. They are. It is directed against us, and they want to kill us, and as we have seen here. And I think many people understood it takes time. It will take time. It will take time, 1, 2, 3 years and longer until we see the signs. But I must tell you that the attitude of for instance, the media in Europe has already changed compared with 10 years ago. There was a degree of shocking cruelty that I mean, we are all human beings, and also the media people are human beings, and they have children. And in the moment they see that the Hamas is killing children and beheading them and whatever the cruelties there, I didn't see those videos. I didn't want to see that because I know it's their strategy to make us depressed with their open cruelty. But some of that is enough to understand what they want and what they intend. And I think that many people understood that now. And I'm looking forward to see the change, or to seeing the change. Really, you may call me an optimist. I don't deny that. I am optimistic, but people are changing, and there are incidents in history. I mean, the attitude of the United States has changed after the 11th of September. September 11th changed the American attitude, for instance, toward Israel. I remember quite well the attitude in the Clinton administration before. The American government was 100% sure that the mistake is with us, that we do something wrong here. They didn't even dream of an aggressive potential that is within Islam, without what we do here, whatever we do. So I think they realized on September 11th that this anti-Western potential exists. So then the usual relapse into sleepiness and denial happened. But I think that October 7th is an eye opener like that, and many people in the world understand what is at stake.
hopefully so. But well, let's close this nice conversation with optimistic tone, and let's say that eventually Europe in 10 years will have a different behavior and a different understanding of the Islam and what it means. And I mean,
Yeah, these people themselves, the militant Muslims, will make sure they will they will do it. So they do it with their aggressive attitude. People cannot neglect that anymore. They cannot deny that anymore. I'm quite sure. There is a certain point when people begin to understand. It's late, always, often too late in history.
Yes.
But I see that there is a real chance now that the attitude of the West will change over the next years.
Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chaim, and I'm really glad to see you, and hopefully we'll talk soon again. So I wish you a very great rest of the day, and thank you again. God bless you.
Hopefully in a peaceful Israel again. Yeah.
Yes, hopefully.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.